Shedeur Sanders just went toe-to-toe with the Browns owner in a face-off that's shaking the entire NFL.
The Cleveland Browns have announced that their third-round pick, Dillon Gabriel, will start Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings in London. When asked about Gabriel getting the starting job, it literally left Shadur speechless.
From Rex Ryan's brutal public takedown, to Shara's eerie silent protest, to the whispers claiming Cleveland's front office sabotaged him before he even touched the field. This is pure chaos. The league hasn't seen a storm like this in years, and it's all centered around one young man who refuses to stay quiet.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because whatever he says, they're going to twist his words. If you say nothing, you know, there's really, on any other team, there are 31 there are 31 other teams. Do any of those media members talk to the third string quarterback?
No.
Oh, it's controversy. Why create controversy? How do you not create it? By when they ask you questions, just don't answer.
The NFL might sell dreams of glory and greatness, but behind those shiny helmets and billion-dollar contracts hides a ruthless game of politics, egos, and raw power. And right now, no story captures that cold reality better than what's happening to Shedeur Sanders, the son of primetime himself, Deion Sanders. The legacy alone should have guaranteed respect, but instead, it feels like he's fighting the system itself. Shedeur wasn't supposed to be just another quarterback prospect. He was meant to be the one.
But he's not a fifth-round pick, so we shouldn't ask him to act like a fifth-round pick because that's not what we believe he is. For me, look, if he'd have took the pro, say, look, I'm happy for Dillon.
Right.
Hopefully he goes out there and plays well. Joe, I feel bad for Joe, but you know this is the game of football. This is a business, and hey, I'm happy for Dillon, and my job doesn't change.
Right.
I go out there, I prepare.
A true generational talent ready to flip the script and drag his father's legacy straight into the modern NFL spotlight. But instead of being celebrated, he's been torn down by analysts, demoted by coaches, and quietly buried by Cleveland's own front office. It's like the franchise didn't want a star, they wanted silence. Going into the 2025 N.F.L. draft, Shadur Sanders wasn't hype. He was proof. Multiple analysts had him pegged as the potential #1 overall pick, not out of favoritism, but pure facts, stats, tape, and performances that screamed dominance. His 2024 season at Colorado wasn't just impressive, it was historic. And now, the same talent that once made headlines is caught in a storm the NFL can't ignore. This was being called the biggest draft slide in NFL history.
Yeah, we know
Joe Flacco was in Cleveland once before, and they let him go.
Yeah.
He was in Indy, and he wasn't, let me get this straight, he wasn't the answer the first time around in Cleveland. He wasn't the answer in Indy. He wasn't the answer at the Jets, but now he's going to be the answer this time around. Joe Flacco hadn't been the answer since 2012 when he took the Ravens to the Super Bowl, and that's it.
Bigger than Aaron Rodgers in 2005. More jaw-dropping than Lamar Jackson in 2018. Shadur Sanders didn't just fall a few spots. He plummeted in real time while the whole world watched in disbelief. It was the kind of drop that instantly set off alarms everywhere, sparking a national frenzy about what really went down behind those secretive NFL war room doors. Something wasn't adding up, and people wanted answers, fast. Then came the real madness. Almost immediately after the draft, whispers of collusion started catching fire. NFL legends began stepping up. Eric Dickerson himself claimed there was a league-wide blackballing against Shadur Sanders.
That's a great piece of television from Rex Ryan. Hats off to Rex and ESPN. So we're finally, this speaks to a cultural change. This is a black quarterback he's talking about, and he's talking pretty salty and spicy about him. And I think he's talking accurately about him. He said, if I know other coaches around the league are talking about it, you're lazy, you're not a leader, you're not at the front of the meeting room, soaking up everything you can.
Even Boomer Esiason went on WFAN saying multiple owners had straight up told their general managers to erase Sanders from their draft boards completely. He said owners were giving direct orders like, take him off. I don't want that guy. That's not normal draft talk. That's power being flexed in the shadows. Let that sink in. We're not talking about a kid who ran a slow 40-yard dash or missed throws at the combine. This wasn't about skill, it was about control.
It's just unusual to see the starter get benched. And, well, I guess it's common because when Russ got benched, Jackson Dart came in to start and Russell went to the backup.
Right.
So I guess it's not as unusual as we might think it is. You're like, well, hold on. Flacco got benched. Shedeur was already third. Shouldn't everybody just like move up a spot and the guy jumps back? But that's seemingly not how they did it because Brian Daboll said that Jackson Dart would start the rest of the season and Russ would serve as his backup, right, and Jameis stays where Jameis is.
We're talking billionaire owners allegedly scheming to keep a talented, confident black quarterback with a legendary father and a bold image out of their spotlight. The reasons swirling around this scandal are wild and chilling. Some insiders say it's payback for Shedeur Sanders shaking up the old power game in college football, breaking traditions and winning his own way. Others say it's about the discomfort certain circles still have with a black quarterback who flaunts diamond watches, drives luxury cars, signs massive NIL deals, and refuses to apologize for his wealth or success. And then there's the craziest theory of them all, Shedeur's rumored contract demands. Word is, he asked for something unheard of, a piece of team merchandise and media revenue. That kind of move could have flipped the NFL's entire money system upside down, and apparently, that scared some very powerful people. The old guard was furious. Former Congressman Jamal Bowman didn't hold back, saying the NFL was scared of strong black men who refused to bend to white corporate expectations. Music mogul Uncle Luke and podcaster Joe Budden backed him up, calling Shedeur's draft slide a blessing in disguise because it ripped the mask off the league and exposed the bias running deep in its system. The comparisons to Colin Kaepernick's blackballing came instantly, and they hit hard. But the NFL wasn't taking those claims quietly. Teams fired back fast, denying any racial or political motive, and pointing instead to legitimate concerns from the draft process. Reports suddenly popped up saying Shedeur bombed multiple team interviews. Anonymous coaches painted him as unprepared for playbook breakdowns, too confrontational when questioning team culture, and, get this, one even claimed he took a FaceTime call in the middle of an interview. One coach went so far as to call it the worst formal interview I've ever had. That's the kind of dirt that spreads fast and sticks even faster. Then came the criticism about his decision to skip combine workouts. Shedeur chose to meet only with top 7 teams, a bold move meant to flex his value, but it backfired spectacularly. Scouts began whispering that his confidence was arrogance, that his sideline body language screamed entitlement, and that he blamed teammates too easily when plays fell apart. Suddenly, his swagger was being twisted into a lack of humility, the exact opposite of what NFL execs want from a young rookie, especially one who's already in the spotlight. And hovering over it all was the Dion factor.
But it's a situation, Ocho. People want to see him succeed or they want to see him fail, but they want to see him on the field.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to, Ocho. Mm-hmm. I want to see him on the field, and I want to see him sink or swim.
Shedeur Sanders didn't just defend his son; he challenged the entire NFL. Publicly, he listed which cities he'd approve for Shedeur to play in, echoing Eli Manning's infamous draft stance. Behind the scenes, insiders say he warned critics that if they called his son arrogant, he'd expose them. It became clear that drafting Shedeur didn't just mean signing a quarterback, it meant taking on the Sanders empire. For cautious general managers terrified of drama, that felt less like a pick and more like stepping into a media storm ready to explode. So when the Cleveland Browns finally snagged Shedeur Sanders with the 144th pick in the 5th round, the world didn't know what to make of it. Was this a team boldly taking a chance on a superstar who'd been unfairly buried? Was it a franchise daring to break an unspoken pact among NFL owners? Or was it something way more complicated hiding under the surface? The move had people buzzing, but no one could agree on whether it was courage or pure chaos. Browns GM Andrew Berry tried to calm the noise, telling reporters, "The time we spent with Shedeur and what he's done throughout his college career is impressive."
I understand you're both rookies, but say something like, "Hey, I'm excited to see him, be a professional." And then the entire thing of miming, Jay, I'm like it's something out of a child's playbook. And the idea is like, oh, he's responding to Rex Ryan. You are a quarterback in the National Football League. Why are we responding to Rex Ryan on ESPN when all he really says is you should be starting, but it's your own behavior? So you double down, triple down on the own behavior narrative? Like, Jay, that position, more than any position, you need a leader of men.
It sounded like confidence, like belief, like they'd found their guy. But that illusion shattered fast, because what unfolded next showed that belief inside the organization wasn't universal, not even close. And here's where things turned dark, like career-altering dark. Because if you thought Shedeur's humiliating draft night was the end of his troubles, you're about to find out it was only the beginning. This next chapter, it's betrayal at the highest level. Picture this: the owner, the man who signs every check, the face of the franchise, the billionaire shot caller, decides to publicly distance himself from his own draft pick before the poor kid even throws a single NFL pass. It happened on July 29, 2025, at Browns training camp. Owner Jimmy Haslam, the billionaire behind the pilot-flying J truck stop empire, worth an estimated $8.5 billion, stepped up to the mic and dropped a bomb that shook the league. When reporters asked about the Shedeur Sanders pick, Haslam didn't sugarcoat a thing. He said, "That decision was 100% Andrew Berry's. I had absolutely no input whatsoever." Then added that he personally preferred other quarterbacks in that draft. Just like that, the young quarterback's welcome turned into a public disowning. The message was loud and brutal. Shedeur might wear Cleveland's colors, but the man at the top didn't want him there. Now you might be asking, why on earth would an owner do that? Why would a billionaire publicly throw his own draft pick under the bus before the kid even got a fair shot? Well, according to insiders, Jimmy Haslam wasn't acting out of emotion. He was playing politics. Reports say he was trying to calm down furious NFL owners who were livid that Cleveland had broken an unspoken agreement. Don't touch Shedeur Sanders. Remember, the Browns were already public enemy #1 in the NFL after giving Deshaun Watson that fully guaranteed mega contract. The league's elite had never forgiven them for it. So, when Cleveland drafted Shedeur, it looked like another slap in the face to the establishment, a defiant "we'll do what we want" move that made Haslam's phone light up with angry calls. So, to save face and protect his standing with his billionaire buddies, Haslam decided to make a sacrifice. He publicly distanced himself from Shedeur, throwing him to the wolves to prove his loyalty to the old guard. And that message? Oh, it landed hard.
That's what it comes down to, because all this talk, well, he shouldn't have been this or he shouldn't have been that. Now, he's going to either prove a camp right or he's going to be proven wrong.
Right.
But so they want to say, okay, we see, now that's why he slid to the 5th round. Mm-hmm. Man, I don't know how, y'all see how he playing? He should have never been in the 6th round. I mean, the 5th round.
Not just for Shedeur, but for every player, coach, and fan watching. It screamed, this kid isn't wanted here. The owner didn't believe in him. And if the guy signing the checks doesn't want you, what chance do you really have? But here's where it gets real. Shedeur didn't fold, not even close. When reporters swarmed him after Haslam's comments, he stood tall and fired back, "I'm here to prove them wrong." Actions speak louder. He stayed calm, focused, and professional. He talked about earning respect through performance, controlling what he could, and shutting out the noise. That's poise most veterans don't even have. Then came the preseason, and Shedeur delivered. In his debut against the Carolina Panthers, he went 14 of 23 for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. He looked sharp, confident, ready to compete, but instead of climbing the ladder, the Browns shoved him down it. They signed Joe Flacco, a 40-year-old quarterback who hadn't been relevant since his Super Bowl run with Baltimore in 2013. Then they drafted Dylan Gabriel, a rookie from Oklahoma, and still had Kenny Pickett, a former first-rounder from Pittsburgh. On paper, competition's supposed to make everyone better. But this wasn't competition. This was a setup. Reports from camp said Flacco and Gabriel were getting all the first-team reps, while Shedeur was stuck running scout team drills, throwing passes against the starting defense, barely seen by top coaches. He wasn't getting the same coaching attention, the same reps, or even the same evaluation chances. It was clear. They were pushing him out quietly, piece by piece. By the time the regular season rolled around, the depth chart said it all, QB3. The break glass in case of emergency guy? The same quarterback who threw for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns at Colorado. The same player scouts once called the most accurate passer in college football. Now buried on the bench, treated like an afterthought. For a kid who was supposed to carry a legacy, Cleveland had turned his dream debut into a silent exile. The wildest part? Shedeur Sanders, the same kid who'd done everything right in camp, showed up early, put in the work, nailed the playbook, was still listed as QB3.
I agree with you, Ocho, because my brother used to tell me all the time, I said, man, I've been in training camp, Ocho, and I'll be like, man, I ain't getting no reps today. Or I'll be in practice, once I made a team. He said, don't worry about it. He said, one day, John Elway gonna call on you. He said, just make sure when he call your number,
You better be ready. Gotta be ready.
The Browns kicked off the 2025 season at 1-3, clearly in trouble. And when head coach Kevin Stefanski announced a quarterback change, everyone thought this was finally Shedeur's moment. But no, he benched Joe Flacco and handed the starting job to Dillon Gabriel, a third-round rookie still learning the ropes. Flacco slid to quarterback 2, while Shedeur stayed buried at quarterback 3, like he hadn't even existed. Let that sink in. The Browns were struggling, badly. They needed a spark, someone who could light up the field and energize a dead locker room. And yet, the one quarterback on their roster with elite college stats, charisma, and a chip on his shoulder big enough to fuel a comeback wasn't even considered. Instead, they went with Gabriel, a solid prospect, sure, but not a proven playmaker, not someone who'd thrown for over 4,000 yards and 37 touchdowns like Shedeur had. The decision made zero sense, and the whispers inside the league started again. Was this personal? And then came the moment that blew up the internet. Because what Shedeur did next wasn't just unexpected, it was legendary. On October 1st, 2025, during a Wednesday media session, reporters crowded around him asking the usual questions. About the quarterback change, about being QB3, about his development under Joe Flacco, basic stuff every player answers. But Shedeur flipped the script completely. He didn't storm out. He didn't argue. He didn't even speak. Instead, he delivered the quietest and loudest statement of his young career. Shedeur mouthed every single answer in complete silence. His lips moved, his face stayed calm, but not a single sound came out. Cameras caught it all. Every word, every motion, but no one could hear him. It was eerie, powerful, and defiant all at once. A silent protest in the middle of an N.F.L. media circus. The internet exploded. Some called it genius, others called it disrespectful, but everyone was talking about it. Analysts lost their minds. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN slammed the move as embarrassing and immature. Rex Ryan, who had already criticized Shedeur before, went off again saying, there's no time or place for antics like that from a QB3. But to the fans, it felt different. It felt symbolic. The kid who'd been silenced by ownership, ignored by coaches, and frozen out by the system had finally found a way to speak without saying a word. But here's what all those loud critics missed. Shedeur Sanders wasn't being immature, he was being calculated. Every move, every silence, every look, it was strategy. Because every time this kid spoke, his words got twisted like headlines waiting to happen. When he showed confidence, they called him arrogant. When he spoke with belief, they said he was entitled. When he backed up his teammates, it was not genuine enough. And when he stayed quiet, they accused him of having an attitude. No matter what he did, they found a reason to hate it. That's when his mother, Shedeur Sanders, stepped in, and she did not hold back. She went off on Rex Ryan and the rest of the media mob, calling them cancerous and jealous. She laid out the truth loud and clear. The double standard was blatant. When other quarterbacks show swagger and confidence, they're called leaders. But when a black quarterback named Sanders does it, especially the son of Deion Primetime Sanders, suddenly it's a problem. She said what millions were already thinking, and for a moment, the whole conversation flipped. Because let's be real, no other third-string quarterback in the NFL gets grilled like this. Nobody's shoving microphones in their face every single day, asking about team politics or play-calling decisions that aren't even theirs. Most QB3s barely get mentioned on game day, but Shedeur? He's trending every week, even when he doesn't play a single snap. That's not football pressure. That's a target. So where does that leave us? With one of the most gifted quarterbacks of his generation stuck in a nightmare. A young man who fell in the draft under shady circumstances. An owner who publicly disowned him before he ever threw a pass. A coaching staff keeping him buried despite weak play from the starters. And a national audience that can't decide if they love him or hate him. But here's the truth. Shedeur Sanders isn't just fighting for snaps. He's fighting for survival. Because in the NFL, a fifth-round pick doesn't get endless chances. If he doesn't see the field soon, if he doesn't get that moment to prove himself under those bright lights, his career could be over before it ever truly begins. No second chances, no rewinds, no mercy. That's the cold reality of this league. And Shedeur's standing in the middle of it, refusing to break. Analysts and former players are sounding the alarm. This whole situation could bury Shedeur Sanders' career for good. Because once the league slaps a label on you, problem player, bad attitude, uncoachable, it sticks like glue. Fair or not, that reputation becomes your shadow. And in the NFL, shadows talk, teams talk, scouts swap notes. Once word spreads that a guy might be too much trouble, the doors start closing fast. If the Browns decide that Shedeur isn't worth the drama, why would another team risk their PR image picking him up? The path forward is razor thin. Right now, Dillon Gabriel is gearing up to start against the Vikings in London. If he plays well, Shedeur might never touch the field this season. If Gabriel flops, there's still Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old backup waiting in the wings. And even if both quarterbacks tank completely, there's still no guarantee Kevin Stefanski would finally give Shedeur his shot, not when the owner has already made it crystal clear where he stands. The dysfunction in Cleveland runs deep, and everyone knows it. But let's imagine the wild card. Let's say the Browns keep losing, drop to 1-7, and decide to throw the kid in just to see what happens. The moment that happens, the weight on Shedeur's shoulders will be crushing. He won't just be playing for a win, he'll be playing for vindication. He'd be fighting to prove every scout who doubted him dead wrong, to justify his father's relentless faith in him, to show Jimmy Haslam that his cold public disowning was a massive mistake, to silence every critic who said his fall in the draft was just business as usual instead of what many believe it was, collusion and bias. But here's the nightmare part. Even if Shedeur balls out, even if he plays with ice in his veins and drops highlight after highlight, it might still not be enough, because the narrative around him has already been written. The media has painted him as difficult. The old guard of the NFL has quietly made up its mind. And breaking through that wall takes more than just talent. It takes dominance. Sustained, undeniable excellence that leaves no room for doubt, no air for critics to breathe. Just look at Lamar Jackson. He slid in the draft too, questioned, doubted, picked apart like he didn't belong under center. But Lamar didn't just prove them wrong, he rewrote the playbook. He became MVP in his second season, turned the league upside down, and forced everyone to respect him. That's the level Shedeur would have to hit. Not good, not great, but historic, because anything less than spectacular and the story they've already written about him becomes his legacy. Even after proving themselves, players like Lamar Jackson still get doubted when the smallest thing goes wrong. That's the ridiculous standard Shedeur Sanders is being held to, not the normal one for a fifth-round pick, where the question is, can he grow into a solid backup? No, Shedeur's bar is sky high. Can he instantly prove he should have been a first-rounder and make every team that passed on him look stupid? That's not a fair standard, it's a setup. Now let's be real about something that too many people are scared to say out loud. The racial side of this story can't just be brushed aside. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, but it's real. Multiple respected black analysts and former players have said it straight. There's a different kind of microscope for black quarterbacks, especially the ones who shine bright, speak boldly, and don't apologize for their success. When Tom Brady beats his chest, he's a winner. When Josh Allen says he believes in himself, he's a leader. But when a confident black quarterback like Shedeur Sanders does it, especially with a last name as iconic as Sanders, suddenly it's arrogance. It's ego. It's a character issue that needs fixing. That double standard is exhausting and impossible to ignore. Even Stephen A. Smith compared Shedeur's treatment to Colin Kaepernick's blackballing, And he's not alone. Believe it or not, even former President Donald Trump weighed in, blasting NFL owners as stupid for letting Shedeur slide so far in the draft. And get this, a fan actually filed a $100 million lawsuit against the NFL, accusing them of slander, collusion, and discrimination in how they handled Shedeur's draft process. Whether or not that case goes anywhere, the fact that it even exists says a lot about how deep this story has cut into public perception. Now, does that mean every bit of criticism toward Shedeur is racially motivated? Of course not. There are legit football questions. Some scouts say he holds onto the ball too long, that his pocket presence still needs polish, that he sometimes tries to do too much. Those are fair debates. Every young quarterback faces them. But when those critiques get twisted into personal attacks, when confidence turns into cockiness, and leadership gets labeled attitude, that's when it crosses a line. And let's not forget how Shedeur's actually handled all of this. The man's been nothing but professional through chaos that would have broken most players. When he got drafted in the 5th round, he didn't rant or pout. He smiled, thanked the team, and said he was ready to work. When Jimmy Haslam publicly disrespected him, he didn't fire shots back. He kept his head down and trained harder. When the Browns buried him on the depth chart, despite his preseason success, he still showed up every day, backed up his teammates, and stayed locked in. Even when the media kept pushing him with bait questions, trying to stir controversy, he found a way to protest without cursing, without walking out, just silence. He turned that moment into one of the most powerful statements of the season. And yet somehow, Shedeur's still the villain in this story. He's still the one being called a problem. He's still the one supposedly needing to earn what other players get handed for free. The irony is brutal. The guy doing everything right is the one being punished for it. That's not just unfair. It's a reflection of a system that still can't handle a confident young black quarterback who refuses to play small. And yet, somehow, Shedeur Sanders is still being painted as the villain in this whole saga. He's still the guy with the attitude problem, still the one who supposedly needs to prove himself, even though he's already done that at every level he's ever played. It's wild. So now the question everyone's asking, what happens next? Some analysts think if Shedeur doesn't touch the field this season, the Browns might quietly cut him loose or trade him for next to nothing. Other teams, seeing how messy Cleveland's handled everything, might stay away completely, worried he's damaged goods. Just like that, his NFL career could be over before his 25th birthday. Not because he wasn't talented enough, but because the people in power never gave him a fair shot. But maybe, just maybe, there's another ending to this story. Maybe fate flips the script. Maybe a few key injuries, a couple bad losses, or one desperate coaching decision finally open the door for Shedeur Sanders to step onto that NFL field and take command as starting quarterback. And if that moment comes, if he gets that shot and owns it, then we might witness one of the most powerful prove them wrong stories the league has ever seen. A comeback so poetic, it forces everyone who doubted him to eat their words. Because whether he plays or not, this saga has already exposed the cracks in the NFL's so-called fair system. It's made one thing painfully clear. Talent alone doesn't guarantee opportunity, especially if the people upstairs decide they don't want you to succeed. It's revealed how deeply those double standards run, especially for confident black athletes who don't bow their heads and whisper, "Thank you," for scraps. And it's shown that even in 2025, in a league that brags about meritocracy, the game behind the game is still about control, politics, and power. Shedeur Sanders' career now stands at a crossroads. The next few weeks could define everything, whether he becomes a cautionary tale whispered about in sports documentaries or the ultimate redemption story that proves real greatness can't be silenced. Will he be remembered as the kid who fell because he wasn't good enough, or the one who fell because the system was built to make him fail? Only time will tell, but one thing's certain. This story is far from over. If you made it this far, show some love. Like, comment, share, and hit that subscribe button to keep up with every twist in this unbelievable journey.